Hello professional, this is Mohammed Abbas. We actually talked about the high availability and disaster recovery in the previous session, which is high availability and disaster recovery part 1. Today I will be moving forward with part 2, which is basically all the demos. Just to recap what we have done in part 1, if you guys are interested, you can go to YouTube and look for the first part. What we have covered is what do you need to know when designing high availability and disaster recovery solution. What you have to ask to the requester when you have given this task. What is high availability and what is disaster recovery? What are the differences between high availability and disaster recovery? What you need to know when you are designing a disaster recovery and high availability solution. And then we talked about the different features available out of the box in Microsoft SQL Server and what are the pros and cons of each of these features. Today we will be covering Always On, which is one of the high availability disaster recovery solution in Microsoft SQL Server. So let's go quickly to the demo, and I'll walk you through as what do we have set up currently. We have 3 virtual machines on my laptop, AD DNS, which is Active Directory and DNS for this environment. Then we have San Francisco as the machine name, where we have SQL Instance 2014 installed, and then we have Boston SQL Server 2014 installed. We already have configured the Always On in this environment, and I will give you the show list of what is in that Always On configuration. So we have one availability group, AG1. By the way, we have also covered all the terminology used in Always On, such as availability group, listener, replicas, what is primary and secondary replicas means. And if you want to understand all of these concepts, please, I will encourage you to watch the first video. So we have availability group AG1, which has 2 replicas, primary San Francisco currently and Boston's secondary. We have one database, DB1, which is part of this availability group, and then we also have a listener, and I call that listener MyDB. So when you have a listener MyDB, you will be using connection instance name as MyDB instead of San Francisco or Boston's in order to connect. There was only one database, DB1, which is currently fully synchronized from primary to the secondary. In the demo, what we will do first is to show you the read-only intent connection. So what does that really mean? What happens in Always On, you have these options to route your traffic, read-only traffic, to the secondary replica, so that you can offload your primary server not to engage those connections which have to only read the data. For instance, you're reporting users. They don't want to get into the production and interfere with your read-write traffic. And also, you can also offload the backups. Backups, you don't want to run it on primary server. You have an options to run these backups on the secondary server. So the first 2 demos would be to see that if we provide a connection in a string, the switches to make a connection to the secondary replica using the same listener name IDB. Let's see if the users are able to connect to the secondary server and able to read the data. So let's start with that. Before I do the actual demo, I want to go through this connection string, which basically says the server name is MyDB, which is my listener, and it's saying the connection is TCP. You can use a different protocol to connect, and the port number is 1433, the default port. Database is DB1, and this is the important piece. The connection application intent. It's saying that my intention is to read the data, and that's where always on route your traffic to the secondary replica, which is configured to only read the data. And the last switch in this connection string, which is not subject to this specific demo, but I just want to shed some light and make you understand what does that really mean. A situation like where you have two replicas on two different subnets, because your one side is in one location, geographical location, and the other side is in a different geographical location, and you want to make a connection from the client, automatically fail it over to and connect to the secondary replica, in case secondary replica become your primary replica, and that two replicas are in a different subnet. What happens, the listener name is basically a DNS name, and DNS has a property called time to live, TTL, which usually lies between 10 seconds to sometime 30 minutes. And if the database failed over successfully, you don't want your users to wait for TTL to kick off, and it takes 10 seconds or 15 seconds, whatever your TTL settings are in your Active Directory. So what happens in SQL Server 2012 and onward, the drivers that they introduce have this smart functionality to see if a switch has multi-failover true option. That means it knows that look for the secondary replica and make a connection to the secondary replica if the primary replica is not responsive. And it is instantaneous. That means you don't have to wait for a Active Directory DNS to take its time and replicate the IP addresses changes from one subnet to other subnet. That's the whole reason behind it. It's always a good practice by Microsoft is to use in this switch in when you're connecting to always-on SQL Server instances, even though if there's no multi-subnet settings configured, but it's always a good practice to use this option. Now let's see. If I use, well, let's first make a connection and see if I make a connection using MyDB. Let me show you that. I am connecting to MyDB, which is my listener, and MyDB is not the SQL instance name, is the virtual name. If I make a connection here, and if I say where I have connected, it will connect to the primary replica, which is San Francisco. However, if I use this connection string, I say it's connected to the San Francisco. If I use listener name, now if I use this connection string, then I should be able to connect to my secondary replica, which is read intent database, instance. So what I did basically is I provided this connection string, which I just talked about, and I say connect. And if I connect using this connection string, I should be landed to the secondary replica, which is Boston. So if I run this server name, I'll see my secondary server is Boston. Now my second demo would be if I fail it over from primary replica San Francisco back to Boston, so that the Boston become primary and San Francisco becomes secondary. What would happen in that case? And if I use this connection string, would I land it to the primary replica or the secondary replica? Now, before I move on to this that demo, I also want to show you that backup functionality I was talking about. When you make the backups are always should be made up onto the secondary replica. So in order to do the demo, I have created some maintenance plan on both of these two instances, San Francisco and Boston, and these backups are actually going to see backup DB1 directory on both of these two instances. So if I go on the Boston instance, and if I connect there and see the Well, I have multiple sessions open, I don't know why, but let's close those sessions for now. That may be a mistake while I was setting up this demo. I want to connect to the Boston and see the maintenance plan there. Let's connect to the Boston here and look at the maintenance plan. As I was showing you, there's also a backup directory here on the Boston server, and I will be setting up this maintenance plan to make the backup on both servers. So I showed you when I connected to the San Francisco server, the backup is here, and I have a backup to make the full backup and the transaction log backup as one job with multi-task in there. And if I come here on the Boston server, and if I go and open the maintenance plan on this side, and I want to show you that I'll see both of the plans are the same to make the backup. And if I open while the plan that we have opened in Boston is really getting ready, I'll show you this in on the primary server, San Francisco. This is what it is saying is saying basically, I don't know if you can see that or not, I'll enlarge that. Is saying that the logic is make the backup to this directory, and then the logic is the preferred replica. It looks for which one is the preferred replica. So there's a system function, HADR backup is preferred replica for database DB1, and if the value is 1, so if the value of 1 means it's a preferred replica, and preferred replica is in this case is the secondary replica, which is Boston for now. It should make the backup there. But if the preferred replica, if this job runs on primary replica, since this is not the preferred replica, this should not make the backup. So the logic is, this is the logic. Now, just to give you some more information, this logic was not part of the maintenance plan until SQL Server 2012. This logic was introduced first in 2014. For you, if you have 2012, and if you create a maintenance plan, you probably will not see this logic. So in order to make the backup, you have to make this logic in the TSQL and set up the backups. But if you have 2014, then you don't have to create the logic by yourself. This maintenance plan you create by default will set up this logic there. Now, so I have two backups, full backup, transaction log backup. Let me also show you that the same logic I have, same backup plan that I have on Boston server, which is the secondary replica. What I'm saying here is same thing, which is make the backup, and if it is a preferred replica, then make the backup, otherwise don't make the backup. And both of these two backups are going into the C backup DB1 directory on both servers, and both of these backups are scheduled at the same time. What will happen, whoever is the preferred replica, in this case secondary replica, will actually make the backup. The primary replica, even though the backup is scheduled and running, but it will skip that backup. It will not kick off the backup because it's not the preferred replica. Now look at that demo before we move forward to the other demos. What I do is this: I will have these jobs scheduled using this maintenance plan. If I initiate the backup on Boston, I will be able to see the backup here. Currently there is no backup in there, as you see, and if I kick off the backup on to the secondary replica, which is a full backup, it should make the backup there. Give it some time, and you will see the backup will pop up here in just a few more seconds. It's a small database, and should not take that long. Maybe it's my laptop which is not fast enough, 8 GB RAM, maybe not catching up with this little backup. Let's give it some time. As you see, the backup pops up. Edit is still running. Finishing up the backup finished. So full backup I made on secondary, it did make the backup. Let's see if I can make the transaction log backup. Now one thing I want to make sure that this full backup is a copy only backup. It's not really a full backup. So see, as you see, the transaction log backup is finished. Also, so you can make the transaction log backup as well. As you make the transaction log backup, the full copy only backup, as I was telling you, the intention is not to provide you the details of what is copy only backup here, but you can look online. The copy only backup is used to not break your transaction log chain. So if you have to deploy something and you don't want to break the transaction log chain, transaction log backup chain, you can use the backup only. You cannot make the full backup if you have to use the always on. Always on does not provide you to make the full backup, but in this case, copy only backup with transaction log backup after that will fulfill your requirements in terms of the backups. Okay, so now let's see if you can make the backup on primary server, which is San Francisco here. Right now, if you go there, you don't have any backup, and if I kick off this backup, I'm saying that if it is not the primary replica, I don't want you to make the backup. And as you will see, the backup reports, the backup job reports success, but it will actually not make the backup. It just check if it is a preferred replica or not. So backup job is finished. If I go back here, I'll see that the backups are really not made. Same thing with the transaction log backup. So let's do that and see if the transaction log backups really have been made. And sure enough, there's no such backup. Now, so far, let's recap quickly what we have shown here. We have shown that if we try to make a connection to the secondary replica, because the secondary replica is the read intent, if you provide in the connection string the read intent, application intent read only, it will take you to the secondary server. Then we have shown you the backups. So we've seen that the backups are scheduled on both servers. They run on a scheduled basis, but only secondary replica will make the backups, not the primary. So we are offloading the backups and also the read-only connections users from primary to the secondary automatically using this connection string. Now, in the next demo, I want to show you that if I fail over from primary to the secondary, what would happen. Before I move forward there, I want to show you a few more things here, how this availability group is set up. So we have availability group, I called it AG1. In there we have two instances, San Francisco and Boston. And then we have availability group DB1 in that availability group, and then we have a listener MyDB. And if I look at the properties of this availability group, you see that which one is primary, which one is secondary. Currently, both are set to synchronized commit. This terminology, synchronous and automatic failover or manual failover, are all covered in the part 1 video. And I encourage, if you are interested to know what this terminology means, you can go back and watch the first video. So this is what it is set up currently. I think I shown you the connection when it connects to the secondary instance. I also want to see that what happens if you able to read the data. You should be, and I have table, let's see, top 1, let's see, count from T1. I know there's a table called T1. I just want to show you that you are able to read this data. Okay, sure enough, there are some records there, and if I want to update T1, set column 1 value equals to 2, where column 1 equals to 1. It's just to see that I should not be able to write the data or change the data. And if I try to do that, it gets me this message: failed to update database because database in read only. So sure enough, that's what the desired intention is. Now at this moment, I will fail over primary instance San Francisco over to Boston and see what happens. Failover is easy. You can script that failover, or you can use this wizard to failover from one instance to other instance. Hold on a second, it's taking some time. There you go. It's walk you through to make a connections to the secondary replica, and it will say, okay, you want to make the script or you want to failover using the wizard. So I'm saying go to the Boston, and it's currently synchronous mode, no data loss. I will move on. It's not connected to the Boston. Let's make a connection. It's connected now. Well, let's see what is happening here. I just want to connect, and it should be able to. My machine is not fast enough, and I probably should say connection timeout to little bigger value, because it's a smaller number here. Let's see, connection property. If I say instead of 50 seconds, use 60 seconds, and here you go, it connected, and I want to fail it over. It's now failing it over from my primary replica to the secondary replica. In a second or so, we'll check it out, and we'll go through this demo again of providing the read-only intent connection in the connection string, and see where we land. And we will try to make the backup on both of these replica and see where the backup is made. So now once we have done that, let's refresh my availability group and check out. Now Boston is my primary, San Francisco is my secondary, and if I go ahead and provide this in the connection string using MyDB, and I want to use the same connection string, because the users will be using the same connection string. They don't know if the failover had happened on the back end. If I connect, I should be able to connect to my secondary replica, which is San Francisco. Let's make another connection using MyDB here, just to make sure that you understand the logic here. Give it another second or so. It sometimes goes nowhere. I don't know why. It's because I have not given enough resources to these instances, because if I give more resources, it actually locks down my laptop, which looks like is the case now. Okay, Microsoft Windows. Now it's not responding at all. Alright, so I'll pause this video for until it come back, and I'll resume it as soon as. Okay, so system is back on, and what we were showing you is the connection. If I make a connection, what will happen? So let's make a new connection and use this connection string, which is read intent, application intent read only, and let's see if where we have connected. There you go. Well, it's supposed to connect me to secondary instance, which is San Francisco. Let's see if anything has changed in between. Well, San Francisco is down. I don't know why. Let's make a connection here. That's the reason why it's connecting to the Boston, because for some reason this the primary replica is down. I will have to check what is happening there. See if Boston is connected. Yeah, the Boston services are running fine. Why San Francisco is down, I have to find that out in just a second. Give me just a second and I'll figure that out. It's currently synchronized and instance is fine. I want to refresh that guy here, and okay, there you go. Well, it's a little glitch there, but what the demo I was showing you, if I connect using this connection string, which is this connection string we talked about all this time, that my application intent is read only, where should I be able to connect? I should be able to connect to the secondary instance, secondary replica, San Francisco, and there it is. So if we fail it over, the users don't need to know what would happen. They will keep using the same connection string. That's the whole intention. That's the beauty of always on. Now, if we go ahead and make the backup, now that we have San Francisco as our secondary replica, the backup should be running on the San Francisco side. So let's connect to the San Francisco instance using the name San Francisco instance, and if I initiate the backup, remember that we seen there was a backup in San Francisco. We don't have that backup on San Francisco when we kick off this backup. And if we make the backup here now, it should be making backup now, because now the secondary replica is San Francisco. And there it is, the backup just popped up here. And if I do the transaction log backup, it should initiate that backup as well. If I check it, it sure enough show that transaction log backup as well. Now if I go back and initiate the same backup on Boston side, now let's remove the backup that we have made previously, so that we don't see these backups here. I initiate the backup on Boston and wait for it to finish. It is checking the logic, and since it is a primary replica, it should not make the backup. And sure enough, it did not make the backup on the primary replica. Same thing if we try to do it transaction log backup, it should not make the transaction log backup either. Sure enough, again, that it does not make the transaction log backup. So we have fill over the replica from primary to secondary. The primary becomes secondary, secondary become primary. And if we have gone through the backup, we have gone through the connection, read application intent read only, and we've seen that we are able to land it to the secondary replica for reading the data, and for writing, we are still able to connect to the primary. Now, next demo, which is the last demo for this video, is if we have some transactions running on the primary replica and writing some data. What would happen if the primary replica goes down? will the secondary replica will take it over, and the users will still be using and connecting to this using the same connection string and having no problems. Let's do this demo here. Since we have failed it over, what we will do is we will fail back and make the primary replica San Francisco. Let's go do that, so that we go back to our initial setup, and to do that we will use the wizard. Not connected, connect. What we're doing is we are making San Francisco our primary replica and Boston secondary replica. We will initiate some transactions to make or insert some records. While we are inserting the record, we will shut down the San Francisco hard shutdown, and we'll see that Boston has all the data that was inserted until the San Francisco was shut down, and we'll see that we will be still using the same connection string to make a connection and connect to instance on the Boston using the listener. So to do that, let's close this connection for now. We're done with this backup, and I have some script that I have written for this demo, and basically what it's saying is saying truncate the table, the T1 we were working on, and that start inserting the data. Let's make sure that we are connected to our primary replica, in this case San Francisco. Sure enough, we are connected to the San Francisco, and if we say that I want to insert long enough records so that we can, while we're doing it, we will see those records are going there, and if I execute this, it's start working on it. And let's assume, well, I think I should initiate this on the Boston server. Basically, the reason why, because we will shut down the primary server, and if we shut down the primary server, we don't know what exactly happened, at what stage the transaction stopped working. So let's go make a connections to the primary replica using the connection string mydb as the listener name, and let's copy this script that we have here. I'll just make a little pause here for a second. Just do a little pause here. Okay, so what we are setting it up here is make a connections to MyDB here. And we should be connected to San Francisco. Let's take a look at that. So we connected here. What we do is we will run this transaction, and it is inserting the records. While it is inserting the record, let's do this. Let's go to San Francisco server and shut it down, hardboard it. So I'm going to close all of this unnecessary application, and I'll go in there. Okay, it's actually taking some time. Let's shut it down. What happens? Exit utility. San Francisco, I just want to shut it down, and while it shut down, you'll see what happened. Suddenly the connection will lost, and it will break the connection. It disconnected, and you notice the number of transactions it inserted here at that time when it crashed. It inserted 9199 records. So if I go to check how many records are there on the Boston side, it should transfer the data there. Let's make a new connection using the MyDB connection string, and go to the DB1 database and select max column 1 value from table 1 and check what is the record at that size, 9199. So this is the number of records there, and I'm able to connect using this connection string even though the San Francisco is down. So for the users, they will still be using the same connection string and the data is there, even though my one of the replica is down. If you look at that here, it says the San Francisco is down and my primary is Boston. I hope that you have enjoyed this demo. For any question you have, please email me at au90remote@gmail.com. Thank you very much. You have a good night.